Well, I'm going to touch on some of these same points from possibly slightly different angles, but there are so many points of resonance. It's fascinating, especially this whole question of how does one publish in order to survive by occasionally publishing something like a bestseller. Yeah, I mean, that's always an interesting thing to think about. I'll begin with just some statistics. As far as I can see, the Pléiade and the Library of America have 5 American authors in common: Poe, Melville, Henry James, Fitzgerald, and Faulkner. 1 French writer, de Tocqueville, the only translation that we've commissioned, and 1 Russian, Vladimir Nabokov, who happened to write a series of American masterpieces. Digging a little deeper into our backlist, many other connections emerge between the 2 literatures. Henry James devoted some 900 pages to French writers, which we've collected in 1 volume. Edmund Wilson wrote important essays on Proust and Villiers de l'Isle Adam. John Dos Passos translated the poetry of Sandras. Ezra Pound translated Rimbaud. Our volume, Writing New York, contains writing by Paul Morand, Simone de Beauvoir, and others. And we've published a whole volume recording the impressions and experiences of Americans in Paris from the 18th century on. And of course, the 18th century really is where the French connection is so important. People like Jefferson were absolutely steeped in Montesquieu and others. But it's fair to say that the 2 series are, as has been noted, as different as they are similar. The Pléiade, of course, has the advantage of half a century, and French literature has a considerably longer advantage. The earliest writings currently in the Library of America relating to the settlement of Virginia and included as part of our volume devoted to Captain John Smith date from the late 16th century. The earliest French writings in the Pléiade take us into the realm of Grail legends and Crusade narratives, and earlier, I'm sure, if I were to go into all of the anthologies that the Pléiade has published. Moreover, as Denis mentioned, in the decade since its founding in 1931, the Pléiade has gone far beyond the limits of France to become truly global in scope, making available not only other Western classics, ancient and modern, but Chinese novels and philosophical texts, Sanskrit poetry and drama, Arabic histories and travel narratives, a list of extraordinarily important translations that keeps expanding: the novels of ancient Greece and Rome, the writings of the Gnostics, a marvelous 3-volume edition of the 1001 Nights, which was published quite recently. While the Library of America, by contrast, as has also been noted, takes as its mandate the continuing exploration of American writing, but with a view toward uncovering many neglected or insufficiently valued aspects of that tradition. And perhaps it's a new enough tradition that there are many things that are yet unrecognized, undervalued, undiscovered. We've steadily broadened the range of the series to include significant works in genres including crime fiction, science fiction and fantasy, children's writing. We've devoted great attention to documentary and journalistic accounts of events from the American Revolution to the Vietnam War. We have assembled materials like that into coherent historical narratives, most recently in a 4-volume, in effect, documentary history of the Civil War told through diaries, memoirs, letters, newspaper accounts, speeches. We've published sermons, screenplays, anti-slavery treatises, writings on film, food, baseball. We've included the cartoons of James Thurber in our Thurber volume, and we've published the graphic novels of Lind Ward, entirely wordless books. This all may seem like a far cry from Melville and Emerson and Faulkner, but with each new volume, we do hope to construct a library that truly reflects American culture in its most intricate reaches and to make that accessible. From the beginning, as Cheryl said, the Library of America has been linked in spirit to the Bibliothèque de la Pléiade. The very notion of the Library of America originated with the great critic Edmund Wilson, and by his own account, stemmed from his encounter with the Pléiade. Wilson's enthusiasm for the Pléiade dated at least to the mid-1950s, when he recorded his admiration for the Pléiade edition of Proust, which he was reading at the time. And in the early 60s, writing to Random House editor Jason Epstein, who became a major figure in the formation of the library, he cited the Pléiade's beautifully produced and admirably printed thin paper volumes as a model for realizing his own vision, a publishing series that would make available what was at that time not to be had. And this is an important point. In other words, French literature was available, perhaps not in optimal form, but it was available, whereas a great deal of American literature simply was not available in reliable editions, even in the 1960s. And despite what Wilson described as an academic industry promoting American literature, but no one had actually gone to the trouble of trying to create authoritative texts of that kind. He wanted a series that would be aimed at a wide readership, not at a narrow academic audience. And his notion of attractiveness was not just about beauty of design, but portability. He famously complained that the densely annotated Ohio University Press edition of Nathaniel Hawthorne's The Marble Faun weighed 9 pounds and reminded him of a doorstop, while the Pléiade edition of The Complete Montaigne weighed in at a mere 2 pounds. He wanted books that carried with them a suggestion of the pleasure of reading. And I do think that is one of the key connections between the Pléiade and the Library of America. That they are not narrowly academic projects, and this has nothing to do with scholarship, but it has to do with the way books are presented and the way they're designed to promote a sense of the pleasure and ease and clarity of the reading experience. Wilson devoted much energy to promoting his idea, but there were, of course, others with slightly different visions of how American literature could best be served. And there followed quite a long period in which letters and meetings and dueling grant proposals contested this terrain. Various academic institutions, university presses, trade publishers got involved over a period of more than a decade. Wilson died in 1972. This was before the Library of America took its final shape, although it was beginning to get there. And many others went on to play crucial roles in establishing that shape, and the content of the first titles, the first 8 titles appeared in 1982. But as I just said, Wilson's perception was that it had to be aimed beyond specialists, and Richard Poirier made a similar point early on, saying there has to be, in any civilization that asks to be taken seriously, a presumption that popular interest can and should be stimulated in the best artistic and literary works it has produced. This was perhaps, in America, a radical idea, that popular interest could go hand in hand with editorial rigor and high aesthetic standards. If this was a leap of faith, it has been fully justified by the subsequent history of the Library of America. The audience was there, and despite all of the extraordinary upheavals and challenges of contemporary publishing, it does continue to be there. I can well remember, this was at a time before I had any involvement or knowledge of what was going on with the Library of America, but the publication of those initial volumes gave me immediately the sense that this was really something new, not just a new format, but the creation of a new space for American writing, not a temporary place, but one that was meant to last, one that was meant to put writing in a more permanent context, to offer it up as a place that you could visit, and suddenly nothing seemed more attractive than to immerse fully in the words of Melville and Hawthorne and Whitman. And when these were subsequently joined by, for example, John Adams's history of the administrations of Jefferson and Madison, an immense history then out of print, and Francis Parkman's complete multi-volume England and France in North America, another important historical work then unavailable. That seemed to signal that the selections the library was going to make were going to go well beyond a carefully pre-selected canon. This was not going to be just about reissuing the familiar titles, but was going to be an enterprise of discovery. And the discovery continues. Our newest list continues to broaden this series. We have just published in 2 volumes the librettos of classic Broadway musicals, the music criticism of Virgil Thompson, Jed Pearl's anthology of writings on art from 1945 to 1970. Finally, it seems to me that the unique force of projects like the Pléiade and the Library of America comes from realizing Ezra Pound's dictum, make it new. They publish these works as if it were for the first time, with an editorial care that gives fresh attention to all aspects of a work, and they establish new meanings and interconnections by the juxtaposition of one title with another within the series. And perhaps what these series have most in common is how determined they've been to continue to change and evolve. Perspectives change, readerships change, and each series in its way has pushed against a restrictive idea of a canon. They've broadened the idea of canon, and each has rejected the idea that such projects have a fixed limit or fixed boundaries. And so each in its way continues to be surprising.